the thing that is most interesting about human beings is they are constantly evolving over time. We know from the fossil record that human beings kind of split away from the ape line 7 million years ago. So then we started our own path, and most of the time we kind of still look like monkeys, you know. Have you seen some of the recreations of like Lucy from 3 million years ago or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really been an interesting path to watch how humans evolved more and more over time. And it's really fast. I mean, we went from pretty much a pure monkey. I mean, life, you know, life's been on the planet almost 4 billion years. And then animals have been on the planet about 500 million years. So even that's not a big, huge amount of time. I mean, it is to us, but in historic time, most of the time on the planet, it was just single-celled organisms floating around in the ocean, you know. And somehow those organisms have led to us on a Zoom call, you know, talking about 4 billion years of life. I mean, it's pretty amazing, you know. And so I'm really a big student of history. And so I really understand like evolution, evolutionary history, biological evolution, and then genetic evolution in general, and then now technological evolution, which some people call mimetic evolution to distinguish it from genetic evolution. So genetic evolution is kind of like the organic dimension. Mimetic evolution is the evolution of ideas. And so it's funny, even the evolution of hominids have kind of followed the evolution of life. Like for 3.5 billion years, not much activity. And then a huge explosion of life 500 million years ago. And then then ocean animals, and then amphibians, and then reptiles, and then mammals, and then us. We're a mammal. We're in the age of mammals. So it's speeding up, you know, even looking at like from Neanderthals to humans. I mean, Neanderthals were here maybe 450,000 years ago. Then we showed up maybe 200,000 years ago in Africa and spread all over the world, you know, and then invented all kinds of spears and, you know, learned to handle fire. And I mean, it's just a really amazing story. But really, one of the most amazing parts of the story is that if we've been on the planet 200,000 years, for 195,000 years, we lived in the Stone Age. I mean, we basically were hunter-gatherers living in the wild in small tribes, maybe 30 people, maybe a big tribe might be 100. Because if it gets much larger than that, there's not enough food for everybody, you know, because they have to go out and hunt every day. And hunt. So most of our time has been tribal and pretty simple and a little advanced, like an arrow. You know, wow, huge breakthrough, you know. And then the big breakthrough was the invention of agriculture. You know. But all the education during that 200,000 years ago was just learn how to find things to eat. You know, so the women generally, because they were pregnant all the time, nobody knew anything, even how you got pregnant for a lot of the time. People died at the age of, you know, you just died all the time. Back in those days, you died at 3 years of age, 5 years of age. Women died in childbirth. I mean, you broke your leg, you died. You got a cut and got infected, you died. Average lifespan was probably 30 years, 25 years. I mean, you know, it was rough. You know? So education was all about, for the boys, how to hunt the animals, and for the girls, how to find what were the best fruits and vegetables to eat, and what were some of the medicines. You know, so the women were the healers generally, and the men were the hunters, and also had to protect the tribe from other crazy males from other tribes that wanted to come and steal their land or whatever. So you really got a bifurcation between men and women in their specialties. You know, men, if you're hunting, you can't make a sound. You make any little noise and the animals go, they run away. So men are really kind of, they just nod at each other, have little signs, yeah, yep, yeah, no. Women have, you know, they're sitting around the campfire feeding the babies and making the food. No, those things, those red things, don't eat those. They look like the good ones, but those are the poison ones. They're communicating all the time and passing their knowledge down and all. And so women are way better networkers and way more communicators than men, in general, And you just see it. It's built right into the DNA with the estrogen and the testosterone and all that, So there's right there. Education was already bifurcated from the very earliest days, and then when agriculture came along, it still stayed bifurcated. It was balanced though, as the women really knew everything around the camp, and the men knew everything about the animals and the hunt, right? And so they kept a balance. Then with agriculture, really agriculture, even though it was kind of discovered maybe 8,000 or 9,000 years ago, it really wasn't widely used until about 5,000 years ago. And so it started in Mesopotamia, in what's now Iraq, and probably popped up in Asia as well, and a couple of other places, then along the Nile. And what's cool is we're speaking Mesopotamian right now. A lot of people don't realize that. Did you know that we're speaking Mesopotamian?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So the old languages of Europe before the farmers, we speak the farmer language. And so as the farming culture spread from Mesopotamia, the Mesopotamian language spread with it. And so why Portuguese is different than Italian, but somewhat similar, is the Mesopotamian language encountered the ancient hunter-gatherer languages. And so the hunter-gathering languages along the Mediterranean were more similar, and the hunter-gatherer languages in the north, and in Germany and Denmark and Sweden, were more guttural, and the ones along the Mediterranean were more suave, more smooth. Well, of course they would be. You're hanging out in the Mediterranean fishing versus the winters in the north, And so the only difference between German and Portuguese, or German and Italian, is they're both Mesopotamian. The scholars call them Indo-European. It's the Indo-European languages. So they're one language group that goes from Denmark to India, because as the farming culture went south, it spread through Afghanistan and into India. And when it went northwest, it went up through Turkey into Greece and all through Europe. And we can actually trace it every 100 years as it's moving. And finally, the reason that we're speaking Mesopotamian is because the farmers had more protection against famine than the hunter-gatherers. And so you were able to have larger families and survive. And so, because you could store food in warehouses for the winter and all that kind of thing. And so the Mesopotamian culture spread throughout Europe finally and displaced the hunter-gatherers, except in a few spots like the mountains in Spain. So Basque is closer to the older hunter-gatherer language. It's not a true Indo-European language. Finnish is not an Indo-European language, even though it's next to Norwegian and Swedish. Norwegian and Swedish are connected to Portuguese, but not connected to Finnish. Finnish is connected to Mongolia because it's the northern tribe, the northern hunter tribes up there. So
is that why they have these very genome, very specific to them, the Finnish, that like doesn't exist in anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, because it was so difficult to live there, so they were left alone for longer periods of time. You couldn't really farm up in Finland. It's just too damn cold, So you had to use fishing techniques and things like that. So the farmers, they didn't bother to go that far north. They just stopped in Sweden, because any farther north than that, it's hard to farm. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So basically, it was actually discovered by a Portuguese sailor. A Portuguese sailor, I think, in like 1575, was in India buying spices to bring back, and he noticed that some of the words were the same. And then the academics started to look at it and went, whoa, oh my God, that's all from Iraq. It's the same language. And what it is as it hit each area, it would change its syntax and things, and maybe it's some particularities, but the roots of the words were similar all the way, and so it's really, really cool. So then the education became everything around farming. So there was no school. There were no schools 5,000 years ago. I mean, you had the library at Alexandria and things like that, but you didn't have schools. You did have some writing. Writing and mathematics were not invented until agriculture. Hunter-gatherers don't need writing and mathematics. They just need the arrow and go find out where the animal is. And that's all verbal, handed down verbal communication. So there was no writing. I mean, no mathematics, nothing. And then the only reason we have mathematics is because we've got a warehouse with a whole bunch of jars of olive oil. We need to know that, 8 of those jars are Miguel's and 20 of those jars are Molly's. And so we started to keep records, and that led to mathematics and then writing and then laws, the Code of Hammurabi and all that stuff all came out of the Middle East, and then traveled with the farmers into every area, So then we really didn't have modern education even during that, because basically you had big wars, and people realized that in the hunter age, the scarcity issue was the animals and the plants. In the agriculture age, scarcity was land. So then everybody fought over the land, and then you had big empires. Then you had a king and a queen, and then everybody worked for them. And so if you were born, unless you were born into a royal family, you just started working when you were 4 years old and worked until you died. And maybe the only option was to become a soldier, because you had to guard the land, or to become a part of the church. That was it. Farmer, soldier, church person. You didn't have many other options. And then the big breakthrough the age we're living in right now happened in 1450 in Germany, when they invented the printing press. And then they realized, when you mass produce things, if you make 1,000 of something, the price really drops. Not only for books, but shoes, cups, glasses, doors, saddles, anything, right? So the age of mass production began, and that's the age we're living in right now. So then we had 2 kinds of education, because the education is not an abstract idea. Education, for most of our history, has been related to survival. So you don't really, once the age of mass production comes in, you don't really get trained in hunting very much anymore. I mean, some families do, but it's more like, once we have cars, we don't use horses. We might still own horses for fun, but we don't ride them to work every day. Focuses on that. So when the factory model came in, then there were 2 kinds of jobs: blue collar in the factory and white collar in the office, because somebody's got to make all this stuff, and other people have to run all the accounting and manage the process and organize the banking and do the accounting and all that. So you need extra education to be in the office. And so the factory was generally kind of a craft that you left school early and learned it. And then if you needed to work in the office and know mathematics and things like that, you went on to a higher education. Then you went there. And then of course, you have the politics also changing, because the politics during the agricultural era were different than the hunter-gatherer era. Hunter-gatherer era is usually the best hunter, was the tribal chieftain. In the ag era, it was the monarch that controlled all the land that you worked on from the time you were born until you died. And then when the factory model came in, then always the government always mimics the economic model. So the monarchs suddenly, they don't really work well in a factory model, because you have to have a president, but you still need a head of production, a head of accounting, a head of this, a head of that. So you need more like a modern production model, like a factory model. So our government shifted. As soon as the printing press was invented, all the kings and queens were gone. It took them maybe 200 or 300 years until they were all gone. But basically, now we have what are called oligarchies, or kind of manager class people, that manage the economy. And their job is just to set the rules so that the economy runs really well, right? And sometimes they become corrupt, because the factory models pay the politicians, hey, change the rule so that we have an advantage, and well, kill that competitor, or we'll do this, or, you know, that kind of thing. But in general, the economy comes first, government comes second. The economy is the driving entity for everything. And as the economy changes, then the governments have to change around it. So once you invent the game of soccer, then you have to have a group of people setting the rules for the game of soccer. Well, that's the governing body. So governance is a real interesting thing, but it's derivative. It's not the organizing principle. The organizing principle is the actual economic engine that creates the wealth and well-being and food and things that sustain us, right? So
Yeah.
what's happening right now? Well, the economy is changing again. We've had a 500-year run of a mass production economy. It's over. Nobody's going to work in a factory in 40 years. It's all robotic. Nobody's going to work in the office tower in 40 years. It's all artificial intelligence. No. That's done. It's just organizing atoms into products. Robots and AI could do that way better. So all the jobs are gone. They're gone. All those jobs, all the jobs that we've been trained for. And it's interesting, our education system then mimics the factory. So, because just like the government mimicked the factory. You know, well, of course, everybody starts school at 6 years of age, and they go through an assembly line process. And at 18 years of age, they get a certificate. And then if they want to stop there, they can go work in the factory. If they want a white collar certificate, they go 4 more years and get an extra certificate. Then they can work in the tower. They get a little more money, they get whatever. But basically, they're all slaves to this engine, this industrial engine. I mean, you get a few weirdos that escape, you know, they're actors and dancers and singers, people like me that are inventors, you know, but most of the culture is involved in a 9-to-5, support the engine of industry. And so the education system mimics that. The idea isn't our education system isn't to help you to become an enlightened person or anything like that. Doesn't care about that at all. No, that's people got that all illusory wrong. The education system has one goal, you know, to make you a good worker, right? Can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Can you sit in your chair for 8 hours a day and have a boss telling you what to do and testing you constantly and performing? And then they'll grade you, right? And if you really do that really well, they'll let you go try out for the office. You know, it's like the army. You're either an infantry person with a gun or you're the officer telling them what to do, you know.
Exactly.
And so the people that actually get enlightened, I mean, they have to go and learn to meditate, or they have to go get a PhD, or they do other things. They're kind of a very small percentage of the population that do that kind of stuff. And they write books and they invent new science and new ideas of drama and even new educational ideas, but nobody really cares about their new educational ideas. That's just a side note. Oh yeah, you can go do that, but really, we just have these two big blocks: blue collar, white collar. That's 90% of the people. That's really what they're going for. And you know, so now all those blue collar and white collar jobs are gone forever, never coming back ever again. Well, then of course that education system is obsolete. It already was, but at least it got you a job, but it didn't educate you. You had to do that on your own through reading and having good parents and traveling and things like that. I was shocked when I was in college the first year, and after the first year of college, I went backpacking through South America for the summer, and I came back from the trip and I realized, damn, I learned more in the last 10 weeks than I did all year in college. Wow. Oh, experience really matters, you know. So I decided I would really make international travel and international things a part of my life because, and when you encounter other cultures, then you see things differently and you learn other languages and, you know, it really expands your mind. But they didn't teach me that at college. And I went to a really good college. I did my PhD at Berkeley and got my MBA and did all that kind of stuff because, you know, they were cool little passports. If you had those things, you could go work in Paris and get paid a ton of money and chill out on the Champs-Elysees. You know what I mean? It's way better, you know. So I learned how to play that game really, really well. And I got the things. But then as I got into the advanced programs, then you started to really get into true enlightened people really doing really beautiful work around ethics and philosophy and how that might apply to creating a better world and things like that, you know. And so now we sit here at this moment in time with this pandemic really putting the stake in the old economy and driving everybody online. They're working online, they're studying online, they're socializing online, their entertainment's online. Fortnite has 300 million players.
That's true.
I mean, 300 million people playing Fortnite. You know, they throw one little concert in there with Marshmello. It's like sold out in 10 minutes, and it's like, you know, 12 million people go to the show. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm telling you, Hollywood's looking at that, going like, "What is going on here?" You know. So we have a chance. There's obviously the number one hunger that a human being has is not for food, not for sex, not for possessions, not for any of those kinds of things. It's to evolve, and we can feel it, and we get a bigger high from evolving than we do from any drug. You know, most people don't learn that, so then they use the drug. You know, they use drugs or whatever to kill their pain. But once they get hooked on evolutionary consciousness and growing their mind and everything, you know, then they're the happiest person in the world. And then you see multimillionaires shooting themselves because the stock market dropped by 20%. You know, like you know, so education for enlightenment is obviously the name of the game. And since there are no jobs in the normal sense going forward, it's going to be around creativity. It's going because the new economy has got two. Well, you look at the oldest economy, hunter-gatherer. It's basically tools, weapons that let you kill protein, game, or knowledge about which plants are safe to eat. So that's the, you know, that's the differentiating factor then. And the animals are not easy to catch because they're running away from each other. They're trying to eat each other. So they already are pretty hard to catch. And then you're out there trying to catch them. And well, we obviously did pretty well. We went from probably, you know, I don't know, maybe 30, 40,000 people a couple 100,000 years ago to we're at 8 billion now. So
Yeah.
we learned how to catch the food, you know, and then we learned how to grow it. So that was a big, a really big break. And there again, it was understanding the seeds, understanding how you mate the animals for genetic purposes, so you grow better and better animals and sheep and goats and cows and all these kinds of things. And so that led to a lot of scientific knowledge on agriculture. And then with the mass production, it's learning how do we heat up iron ore and make it into steel, and then how do we shape the steel into a ship or a car or whatever, and how do we dig the oil out of the ground and refine that into gasoline. And so, you know, those were all the techniques and scarce resources. And we've had, I mean, the 20th century was the most brutal century in history. I mean, we had 2 world wars, and it was all around controlling the resource base. Before that, England and Spain and Portugal pretty much ran the world because they had the ships. And then once the mass production came in, then it really got into these powerful armies with powerful metal weapons. And the 20th century just went crazy. I mean, I don't know, just what, 100 million people dead, you know, from killing each other. So people are going like, well, the Dark Ages back in the 1400s. No, I got the 20th century was the Dark Ages. You know, historically looking at it, like if you've ever seen, have you ever seen the television show or the movie Star Trek, right?
Yes.
Star Trek, yeah. So from Star Trek's point of view, the 20th century is the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
people are in trenches shooting each other and get gas and then bombing. It destroyed all of Europe and had to rebuild it all. I mean, that's the Dark Ages. What we're headed toward is an age of abundance where we're not fighting over scarce resources. Well, how is that going to happen? Well, here's how it's going to happen. The digital economy, each economy overlays the previous economy, right? And so it's called transcend and include. And so when agriculture comes in, they're still hunter-gatherers, but now they're starting to grow things and hunt. And then they hunt less, or maybe they catch the animals instead of killing them and then put them in the pens and then breed them. Do you see what I mean? So the new idea embraces the old idea and transforms it, right? And then when the mechanical age came in, the mass production age came in, well, then they mechanized the farming. It wasn't just people on the hand pulling a plow behind a horse. Maybe they had a machine, with an engine and everything. So now as we move into the digital age, well, then we digitize the old economy, robots and AI and everything. I don't know if you know much about nanotechnology.
Yeah.
But, so you can just take a pile of dirt, throw it into a big hopper, and it just makes diamonds by the dozen, because it's just aligning the carbon atoms, no big deal, right? They're just like perfect diamonds for free, just from dirt. You can make a diamond house for like $10, just shovel the dirt into the nanos machine. It just pumps out diamond bricks, you know what I mean, that are impervious to wear. You can build a diamond house for like $1,000 and nothing. It's as good in 100 years as it is today. Nothing happens to it. There's no wear. So that's what's coming. I mean, this stuff's already here. I mean, they're actually using it today. It just hasn't scaled up, because it's still expensive. But what happens is with these exponential technologies is they become really, really cheap over time. So this device here, can I see it? There it is. No, you can't see it.
I can see the shape.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah. That device there, we call it a smartphone, but it's not smart and it's not a phone. That is a freaking Cray supercomputer from 1987 that was like $18 million. And now girls are riding around the back of mopeds in Vietnam and they own one. And if you had told anybody in 1987, we're going to give everybody a Cray supercomputer, $18 million, fastest computer in the world. We're going to give everybody on the planet, 4 billion people on the planet, a Cray supercomputer, and we're going to make it so small that it'll fit in your pocket or your purse. And then we're going to connect it to every other Cray supercomputer over and put every piece of book and every piece of writing we've ever had all online so everybody has access to it. And we're going to do that by 2020. They go, yeah, right. What are you smoking? But that's how fast, that's how things happen, right? And we did it. And it's happening. And it's not slowing down, it's speeding up. So what's the equivalent today? Oh, well, the equivalent today is everybody gets Jarvis. Everybody gets a personal AI that totally protects them and guides them and teaches them and helps them and invests for them and links them to people they need to link to and everything. And so you get a global AI network. So it's humans augmented by AI. That's the ultimate tool, right, that we've ever made. I mean, tools have been great. I mean, from arrows, to plows, to cars, to whatever. But having a personal AI, wow. Looking at everything you're eating and helping you have maximum health at all times and analyzing your genetic code and running it through CRISPR and having you eat these things so that suddenly it solves any genetic anomalies you may have. 2050, that's going to be pretty common, right?
And it can be like your coach on your learning as well.
Totally your coach in your learning aspect. And so that really brings us to what is this new education model, And so what I like about AI, because, that's my specialty and that's what our company really does at the core. And so we've integrated the 4 or 5 really big technology areas of, and then generally there's robotics. It's a very big area, billions of dollars. There's virtual and augmented reality, very big area, billions of dollars. There's AI, huge, billions of dollars. There's blockchains and other kinds of things like that, billions of dollars, right? And there's IoT devices. There's going to be 1 trillion IoT devices all plugged in by the end of the decade, this next decade. I mean, billions of dollars, right? And but they don't all talk to each other. Whereas every page on the internet can link to any other page, and you create a library of all, right? I think we're at 8 billion pages right now that are all linked together. Well, and everybody can access it from their little Cray supercomputer, right? So Now we want to link everything, every car, every building, every person, everything, and do it in a way that doesn't enable a dictatorship. So we had to do it with sovereign identities and privacy and data privacy and all kinds of things. So we spent a lot of time getting the governance model right for this new digital civilization, this new digital economy. So it's a digital economy around which governance models will wrap, just like they wrapped around the mass production economy, just like they wrapped around the agricultural economy. You see what I mean? So we don't have to invent the governance models. The governance models will wrap. They come second. You get the economy right first. See? So what are the two scarce resources in the digital age, right? Because that'll define the economy. And they're basically photons or electrons, whichever way you want to call it. They're basically electrons, and creativity. Well, we don't have a limit either one. So there's no fighting over them. Do you know what I mean? When you have an infinite abundance, it's like everybody who is born suddenly has $100 million in the bank. So you're not going out to get a job you don't want to do because you already have $100 million. So, so then you have your life is like, what is your life about? Oh, it's about finding your purpose and understanding the meaning of life and exploring what Buddhism might mean or whatever. Do you see what I mean? And so that's what's going to happen in the next 50 years is we're going to get rid of working for money. And things like tokenization will help us with that. Do you know much about tokens and blockchains?
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yes.
And so you take a look at it like a little simple experiment like Bitcoin. So 10 years ago, Bitcoin was worth 1 penny. Today, Bitcoin's worth 10,000. So there's $180 billion worth of Bitcoin out there right now. So if you took any company that started 10 years ago, and now they're worth a market cap of $180 billion, that's a pretty successful company. You'd know all about them. They'd have headquarters offices. They'd have a big famous CEO, founder. They'd have marketing departments, advertising agencies. They'd have product releases. It'd be it's a big deal. But Bitcoin, there's no Bitcoin company. There's no Bitcoin CEO, no Bitcoin employees, no Bitcoin nada. There's nothing. There's just a white paper that says, here's how it works. It's an algorithm. And yet it grew automatically just by people using it on a network from $0 to $180 billion on its way to $1 trillion. It'll be worth $1 trillion in probably 4 years, 5 years. And then it'll go to $10 trillion because it's kind of like a digital gold tool for a network economy. So as we move into a network economy, of course, we're going to have network currencies. Duh, of course.
Yeah.
And so when you're a hunter-gatherer, you don't have money. You just trade. It's a barter system. And when you start having a larger city-states, because of agriculture, then the bartering gets too clumsy. So you've got to invent a symbolic money. And so we've had symbolic money now for the last, 5,000 years. But really, as we move into tokens, they're really just digital assets. You don't ever you're not carrying symbolic money around. You have it wired into the system, and your data is valuable. Just by you can sell your data right now. Google and Amazon are pretty big companies. They're just selling our data. That's all they're doing. They don't make anything. They just made a data collection system. Then they sell that data to advertisers, and they're worth billions of dollars. So what we did with the spatial web was we said, okay, well, in the new digital economy, data is oil. Then let's make self-sovereign IDs for everybody. And then you own your own data. And then we put data exchanges into the system. And you can sell your data, maybe anonymized, so you don't have to be tracked. And you don't log into anything because you're already a sovereign person. And so your data is still valuable. So we already have data exchanges built in. And then the AIs can take that raw data, because you can sell the raw data for X. But you can sell the package data that's specifically something around cars or around the stock market or whatever. That sells for 10X or 100X, right, over the raw data. And so we've got AIs then that are massaging that data and selling it on these exchanges to the same people that are buying it from Google and Facebook now. They still want the data if they're Tesla or whoever. But now you get paid instead of an intermediary. We take 15% for running the system. 85% goes back to the owner of the data. And so now just by existing and doing things, you're getting paid because your data is valuable. And so by giving privacy and data control, suddenly you've already got the foundations of a different kind of economy that just pays you automatically just for existing. It's pretty wild.
Amazing.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So now you go, okay, well, what do you really want to learn? Oh, well, that's the new university. So we want to build a university online. Well, what is this network? What's so different about this network? The thing that what is it that's like the printing press or like agriculture? What was the thing? What was the breakthrough, that allowed this new economy to emerge? Because there's always some kind of moment where something gets invented and then the new economy explodes and it's 100 times larger than the old economy. The agriculture economy is hundreds of times larger than the hunter-gatherer economy. The industrial economy is hundreds, thousands of times larger than the agricultural economy. It's $84 trillion in GDP right now globally, right? No, the digital economy is going to be hundreds of times larger than the industrial economy. Duh. Yeah. You think $84 trillion is pretty cool. And most of that is corruptly being pulled away and captured by small groups. No, listen, what would you do if you had $800 trillion and you could distribute it more fairly? Oh, well, then everybody's a millionaire. Everybody's a millionaire. That's what's coming, right? Between 2050 and 2100, that will dominate because the algorithms are there to do it. You can't stop them. There's no way to block them. You can't get control of them if you're a one percenter, and all of us here are one percenters, but if you're a bad one percenter that's trying to grab it, you can't. You can't grab it. It's an algorithm in a network, and it follows different rules. Anyway, that whole game is suddenly becoming obsolete. And so there's a new game. And the schools are not prepared. I mean, they don't know what to do. They're designed to service that industrial age. You get 12 years of your primary school and secondary school, and then come to Harvard, come to Berkeley, come to Oxford, come to whatever, and then we'll get you all dressed up, and then you can go either run a company or run a country, and there you go. And that's the game, right? Well, that game's over. You're not going to get to run the net. So what was it? What was the big defining moment in our lifetimes that's similar to the printing press or the invention of agriculture in the past? And it's something that most people don't understand at all. But it's fundamental to the governance models and everything else that's about to happen, and the education model that's about to happen. And that is, when the first computer was invented in 1944, it was called the Colossus, a giant thing. It filled a room. And it was designed for one basic purpose, which is to crack the German code so we could read their secret messages. And that helped us win the war. I mean, without Colossus, we might be speaking German right now, But it helped crack the code. And then we could read their code. And so imagine being a wartime general, and you can see everything that the other side's talking about and what they're planning, but they don't know But if you block them at every step, then they realize you've cracked their code. So you've got to lose battles. You've got to not act on your intelligence and save it for just the crucial battles. You've got to watch thousands of men get killed because if you save it for this battle, it might save the whole war and save millions and millions of people's lives. That was what happened in World War II with that intelligence, And so that was so crucial to winning the war that every government and every company after the war, every major corporation and every government got a computer. Oh, we need computers to help us manage everything, the logistics and the flow of information and how much is owed to this and all that kind of thing. So in the 1960s, we had become completely dependent on computers. The Pentagon, General Motors, all these things were all running on giant IBM computers. Well, then the Pentagon Advanced Thinking Team, which is called DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, goes, the most interesting field of mathematics is called game theory. So John von Neumann is considered kind of the Einstein of computing. He's a Hungarian mathematician who kind of invented game theory. And game theory lets you predict, under these circumstances, this is what your opponent will do and this kind of thing. So we play games like Fortnite and stuff, but we're talking real games here. We're talking about decisions you make on which product to buy or how an enemy will act under certain circumstances. And when they ran the scenarios out, it made sense for the Russians to just fire off all the rockets they had in America first and wipe us out, called First Strike, because then we're blind because all our computers hit all the major computer installations. Then we're blind. Then they easily could win the war. And so then the game theorists went like, oh my God, we've set a game up here where it encourages our opponent to attack us. So we got to do something. What can we do? And they realized in chess, if you can get the king, then you win the game. In armies, if you can get the command and control center, then the army's blind, then you win the game. So they had to develop a network of computers with no center. And so it's called the network of networks. And so the term we give it is internet. There's no central computer. And so what it does is it runs on a protocol like Bitcoin. It's just a protocol called TCP/IP. And if you follow the protocol, anybody can plug into the internet and bing, they're talking to every other computer on the network. So the breakthrough is decentralization, network decentralization. And then there's no central authority that you have to ask. Okay, I just bought this Apple computer. I have to call the central authority. Am I allowed to plug my computer? No. Here's the open protocol. It's global standard. Anybody, 2 girls in Senegal, boom, plug in and start recording videos of the best musicians, and suddenly they got a whole deal. So this idea, everything up until 1969, when the first 4 computers were linked together in the test to test the idea of a no center network. It was UCLA, Stanford, Santa Barbara, and Utah. Those 4, they tested them. And from that moment, it's never stopped. It's the biggest engineering project in the history of humanity, trillions of dollars, satellites, fiber optic cables, 10 billion computers plugged into it now, all from 4 computers in 1969, only 50 years ago. That's not that long. And it's never gone down once. Little pieces of it go down because there's no center. It just heals around it. And then we came up with this brilliant idea of packet information system. So I'm sending you a message from LA to Lisbon, and I just throw it into the internet, and it breaks itself up into like 40 little packets, and they all find their way to Lisbon, however they want to find, and then they reassemble themselves. They have a little header on one. I start at 1 and end in 2. Oh, I start at 4 and end at 5. Oh, well, we're waiting for 2 to 3 and 3 to 4. Okay, and then they show up. Cool. Then the message. Then you can read the message. It happens really fast, but it isn't exact. They don't show up exactly in order. They show up all over the place, and and maybe a bomb goes off in Dallas, and they have to route themselves around Chicago and then get over to London and down to Lisbon. But they get there. That's the whole value of a organic decentralized network. There's no central hub coordinating everything, so you could blow up a whole section of the internet, and the rest of the internet doesn't even notice. It just keeps on rolling, no problem. Super resilient, right? So for 50 years, that thing has never stopped, and it's doubling, in capability like every 18 months to 24 months or so. And so now it's this vast thing, this trillions of dollars, and just like covering everything we've ever thought of, and Wikipedia on top of all that, and every cat video you could ever dream of. I mean, it's just amazing what's happened, right? And that's all just to lay the groundwork, for what's about to happen, right? And so, so the first phase of the decentralization process was just connect all the computers with no center, and then they can communicate between them, each other. So then that allowed email. So then from 1969 until 1994, the only thing the internet really was pretty much used for was email. So in 1988, I might have a Mac on my desk, but the only thing I used the internet for was email people. And I mean, otherwise I'm using Word and Excel and writing documents and connecting them to an email and sending them somewhere. In 1994, Tim Berners-Lee goes, I've got a new protocol. Instead of TCP/IP, I've got another protocol that sits on top of TCP/IP. Because you still have to have the IP routing, internet packet routing system. But on top of it, we're going to put something called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Well, what's that allow you to do? That allows you to transfer text across the network. Oh, so now we can have content. We can have pages. And so now we have 8 billion pages online, decentralized, no central control. Anybody any day of the week can go like, oh, I'm going to learn HTML. It takes about 4 hours to learn basic HTML. They can write it in Word and then add the HTML code to it, and then hit a button, and there's a web page. And put 5 of them together. Now there's a website. You know, so basically, Facebook is called Facebook for a reason. It's a book of pages. Amazon is basically a Sears catalog from 1955. It's just a catalog. It's pages with pictures on them, and oh, I want that. I can order it and throw your credit card in, and they ship it to you overnight. Basically, Amazon is just a big distribution hub. It's not even, not a lot of technology there. It's just a page with pictures of things you could buy and the price, and then a big warehouse where all the things are, and then they ship them to you overnight. So it's a very simple internet that we have right now. It's there's a little noise in the background. Let me turn that off.
Super interesting. Really interesting.
Miguel was just saying how interesting this is.
Well, it's because we have to go through this so we get to what's about to happen. We're laying in the foundation. Do you see what I mean? Otherwise, then we're just talking. Yeah, it's going to be this, that, but so what? A million people have just said stuff and nothing ever happened. No, we want to actually make something real happen, right? And so we've got to understand what happened to get us here so that we know what we're doing as we go to the next step. And so, so now we've got 8 billion web pages covering every topic. You know, you can find it all. But what we'd really like would be something like science fiction movies, where maybe I've got a pair of glasses on, and there's hologram characters, and there's knowledge about everything. Maybe the whole world is like a big computer game at that point. I can say anything, and it'll tell me about it. It's like it's got artificial intelligence. It can show me things. It can bring me things. It can do whatever, right? And so I might want to say a simple thing like a drone is going to deliver something to my house. Well, I might like to tell, I don't want the drone to deliver it to the front of the house because somebody might steal the package. I want it to deal at the back of the house, in the yard, in the garden, where I have a locked gate, or on the roof if I've got a flat roof or something, you know. And so the HTTP protocol can't do any of that. It only knows where web pages are on machines. That's it. Well, that's not going to help us manage a smart city. It's not going to help us do kind of genetic health analysis or any of the things that are going to be normal in 2050, right? All the sci-fi worlds that we see in Star Trek and Star Wars and Blade Runner and everything else, which are all going to happen. But we want to get rid of the evil side of it, you know. But the good side of it, we want that to happen. That's all coming. It's all done. It's all working in university labs and research centers right now. It hasn't scaled yet. Just like you know, even a mobile phone was thousands of dollars in early 1990s, right? Now we have these powerful devices, and they're for $100 a month. You pretty much have a mobile a mobile supercomputer, you know. And so everything's there. We don't even have to invent anything new. We just have to scale it and use it well. And so now what we did to contribute to the process of the evolution of this amazing network, this decentralized network, is it begins with a protocol. So Bitcoin's a protocol. World Wide Web's a protocol. Email is a protocol. So, it begins with a protocol. Protocols are decentralized protocols on decentralized networks are the new mass production breakthrough. And so what's this protocol?
HSTP, right?
HSTP.
HSTP.
Yeah. So what's this protocol got to do? It's got to understand the world around it. It doesn't have to know where that document is on that machine. It has to know how fast this car is moving down this street. You know, it's an autonomous vehicle, and we're going to have self-driving cars here in 5 years pretty commonly. Well, that AI's it can't just be in the car. It's got to have awareness of everything going on around the car too, right? Otherwise, it's just going to run right into a wall. And it can't just have a little LiDAR on the front going, is anybody in front of me? Keep going. No, it's got to understand the traffic laws. If there's white stripes on the street, you know that that's a crosswalk. And you know, you see a bike coming, you can calculate the speed. It's going like 20 kilometers an hour. You know, it might intersect you, you know, and it has to have full awareness of everything around it. So you need a spatial protocol that can cover every square meter of the planet, right? And so it's a ridiculous idea, but somebody had to do it. Do you know what I mean? And so the thing that has made the protocols work in the past is they're not owned by a company. Nobody owns TCP/IP. It's just part of the internet nonprofit foundation that runs the global internet. It's not owned by Microsoft. HTTP, it's the World Wide Web Foundation, not owned by Microsoft or Google or anybody. And so when we started, and so I'm a computer game designer among other skills that I picked up along the way. And so when the 2D web came to life in 1994, I realized, oh yeah, well, this is just step one. We're going to have a 3D web. The only reason we have a 2D web is the computers are so slow and the networks are so slow, you can barely download a web page. But that won't be the case in the future because of exponential technologies. You know, linear technologies are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exponential technologies are 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. Well, 256 is a whole lot different than 10, you know. And then 10 goes to 11 and 256 goes to 512, you know. So that's why we have all the stuff we have, because once they're digital, they can go exponential. And so so it's clear, okay, I'm working in computer games in the 90s. It's really clear we're going to have a 3D web, but we can't have it yet. You have to have specialized machines to play a 3D game, like a PlayStation or something like that, or a special big graphics card that you buy for $1,000 and plug into your PC. And if you really wanted to play a 3D game, I mean, that was hard to do. And oftentimes you couldn't even do it across the network. The networks were too slow, so you could only play it. If you wanted to play a friend, they had to come over to your house and play it on the PlayStation. You know what I mean? Or an Xbox.
I still remember in early 2000s, late 1990s, where we tried to play on the internet some Doom or some Quake or something like that. it was like pages going. You were going with a character. It was like downloading the frames.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I knew because I work in Silicon Valley that, yeah, this is just a matter of time. It's going to hit. And as I started to calculate it, so what I did from 1994 until now, I kind of tap into magic a little bit through meditation, and I tap into like a higher consciousness, and they function like guides. Like, do this. It's different than thinking. It's like almost like downloading. It's almost like poets. They sit there and wait until they can hear the poem, then they write it down. You know, I always just say, Mozart never composed a piece of music. He just heard it and wrote it down. You know what I mean? And so I meditate a lot. So I just would allow myself to be guided. Oh, do this next, do this. And And it would maybe seem kind of crazy, but no, then we should learn everything about databases. Oh, let's become the top database company in the world. Oh, so we wrote the database for the Human Genome Project, like that's pretty good. Our database was so good that the Human Genome Project went, yeah, that's the database. And we were just a young company of like 20 people, It was
That's amazing.
We did that in computer game characters. We did that in different things. And then we developed that and then sell the company and then go to the next thing. And so by the time we got here, we had done every piece of the stack. We knew every piece of the stack really well. How to build 3D, how to build AI, how to build databases, how you would control robots, how you would talk to an IoT, all that stuff. We had already done it all. And so then it was easy for us to figure out how the protocol would work. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to integrate these things. You got an open protocol. The great thing about HTTP is every computer, doesn't matter whether it's an Apple or a PC or a phone or whatever, it all talks to the same internet because that's a standard, a global standard. So there were two jobs to do here. One was to invent a standard that would be powerful enough to be able to integrate everything. That's a big task. It's a big task, really hard, basically impossible. The odds against us doing that, 100,000 to 1. I mean, if you, as you begin it, if you just tell people, we're going to build the new standards for the new 3D internet, they're going, yeah, all right, kid, see you later. Good luck. Zero chance. Do you know what I mean? And people would say, no, you got no chance. I mean, maybe Google could do it, but no startup could ever do it. But I knew that Google couldn't do it. The reason Google can't do it is because if Google made the standard, Apple wouldn't use it. They're deadly competitors. If Apple uses it, Microsoft won't use it. If Microsoft does it, Alibaba won't use it. You see what I mean? The reason that the World Wide Web works is because a small group of people made the World Wide Web protocols and then put them in a nonprofit foundation and say, hey, free to use, anybody can use this, we're not charging. Hey, this is just our idea of how we could move things around more effectively. And everybody went, yeah, pretty good idea. The guys at CERN in Switzerland and working with some people at MIT, probably pretty good. Let's just use that. It's already working on top of TCP/IP. Okay, plug, go, and then everybody wanted to build a website anyway. So adoption on the one side, driving it, and then you had a bunch of smart people that were networked and had good connections on the other. So they're getting support from universities and from IEEE and all these big international standards bodies. And so everybody went, it's just easier. Let's just use this. It's blowing up really fast. Why build a competitor? It's free of charge. I mean, it would cost us millions of dollars to try to build a better one and get them out. We can just join the community. We can join the roundtable and improve this one. And that doesn't keep us from building Amazon.com or Google or all these other things, but we won't mess around with the protocol. It's done. Let that go. And the same thing with TCP/IP. It was done by a bunch of engineers and given away, as part of the Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF. So we said, aha, that's the secret. We'll give it away. that way there's no, but it's like some guys are sitting around at Google and they're going like, those guys are making this spatial web protocol, and they're going, what is that? Who are they? We're Google. What do they do? What are they charging? We'll just undercut them. And they go, no, they're giving it away. What do you mean they're giving it away? They give it away. How do they make money? They don't make any money. They just give it away. What? And they've got all the top people in fact, they hired some of our people from Google and from Microsoft and from MIT and everywhere to build this thing. It's all the best people. They're all written about. Everybody knows them. They built the thing, already. And now they got IEEE behind them. They got MIT using it. They got Yale using it. It's like, wow, I guess it's a little bit like the World Wide Web was. I guess we just use the protocol. And if we don't like it, we just join the conversation and say, if you guys did this, it would make it better. And then that gets incorporated. So that's what we did. So we didn't tell anybody what we were doing for the first 2 years. And we just built the protocols and HTML and 3D HTML called hyperspace modeling language, and got those all done, and then got them to the IEEE and got them to MIT and got them all proofed, and everybody's backing it now. And now it's starting to become a global standard. And same thing, free to use, the whole deal. And then we kind of learned from Linux that Linux is free, but Red Hat grew up as a separate company to build add-ons to Linux. So if you look at Amazon Web Services or Google or Facebook, they're running soccer field size warehouses full of computers, thousands of computers for their big cloud server farms. They're all running Linux. But they run a tamed Linux because it's Linux plus Red Hat code that helps it all coordinate better. So we said, okay, so we'll give away the protocols and then we'll build the spatial application software and we'll sell that. So anybody can build spatial application software because there's the protocol, it's open, you can just see it right there. But, because HTML and HTTP, you don't need to buy WordPress or anything. You can just learn HTML and learn it yourself and code it. But if you're a big corporation, you probably don't want to do that. You probably like to have a properly built system and supported and tech support and all kinds of upgrades and backed by other companies and all kinds of things like that, right? So that's how we designed the company. It's split into two halves. One is the protocol half, and then we put that into a nonprofit corporation called the Spatial Web Foundation. And then we let go of control of that. We just have a seat at the table along with everybody else that's out there in the world and growing and slowly becoming a standard. And then over here, then we have our company called Versus, which builds tools to let you build a smart city or a smart warehouse or a new education system or whatever you want, right? And so, that's the deal. So in our education system, then you can already see the design of it. It's going to be virtual reality and augmented reality with artificial intelligence, with blockchains. And it's going to be decentralized. So it isn't like we're going to make Harvard and then you have to come to Harvard and get selected and allowed in. No. It's a big decentralized education environment. Anybody can offer courses. And the people are voting on the quality of the courses. And the AIs are helping match you to the right courses. And those courses could be anything from learning how to meditate to learning higher mathematics, just whatever. And so it's a real true university, meaning universal. And our name is Versus. So, we are already a university, we already have Versus in there. So then because we've got these amazing architectures that deliver self-sovereign ID and automatic payments and all this kind of thing, so then you're engaging directly with people that you want to learn from. And then the AIs can give you testing to see whether you've mastered the material, then give you certificates that, yes, you've mastered that level of material. So then you can use those certificates to, learn to be a programmer or learn to whatever it is you want to do, right? So these are called micro certificates rather than just one big university degree, And so then you have lifelong learning then from the age of 2 or 3 to 100, 150, right? And because our lifespans are going to increase dramatically because of CRISPR and genetic engineering and other kinds of things. So we might have 200-300-year lifespans here, in the next 50, 80 years, So then you're really, you're not really learning from a normal point of view of just trying to get a job, but you're also learning things that really, you might want to learn about the history of how life evolved on the planet, or you might want to learn what the Buddha meant by enlightenment, or you might want to learn something very technical. I mean, mathematics is a really beautiful area, or music composition, or whatever. And so suddenly you get almost like a university city, like a virtual reality city. And you come there and you just engage it. And you've got AI, you got your AI agent helping guide you through it, and maybe even asking you questions and kind of testing. There's some really cool work done in an area called axiology, which is kind of like values measurement. You interview a kid, a girl or a boy, when they're 10 years old, they might want to be like a famous athlete or a movie star or something. When you interview them when they're 20, they might really want to become a doctor or something like that. I mean, their values are shifting over time. Do you know what I mean? And so, so as we evolve our consciousness, our values are evolving as well. So the AIs are kind of engaging with you, seeing where you're at. And there's some really good work done by Ken Wilber. Do you know his work? Wilber.
No,
Oh yeah, you might want to look
no,
at
but
it.
I'm gonna check. Ken Wilbert.
Wilber, Wilber, Ken Wilber. He's done some really nice work in looking at the evolution of consciousness over time from survival states. I mean, a lot of people in college learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from survival to community to self-actualization. But Wilber's taking it a lot further. And I think we could maybe develop an education around evolution. Do you know what I mean? The evolution of mind and the evolution of consciousness, and something like that. And then kind of create a framing environment for that. And then find really great people to kind of seed it, to kick it off, and then allow the world to crowd source in. And suddenly you've got a university of 100,000 teachers, and some of the teachers are AI teachers because they can teach as well, and some are augmented AI and human, and you're kind of working your way through it. And you have a wide range of interests, so you might be, part of you is interested in drama and the history of drama and reading all the Shakespeare plays and maybe seeing them and all acted out, and then even playing in them, because virtual reality allows you to take on any character. And so you can be Lear, or you can be Macbeth, or you can be anything, right? And so you can kind of see the ultimate education environment and how it emerges. We don't have to define it. We simply have to seed it. And then it's called emergent. So we kind of can see into the future a little, but if we just get the soup components right, then what comes out is better than anything anybody could have designed. Do you know what I mean? So we're kind of more like gardeners. We're kind of like protecting it and helping the garden grow and keeping bad actors out. Oh, that's a bug that eats all the plants, whether it's a hacker or something, you know what I mean, or whatever. So there's ways of protecting the garden, and the AIs that can be trained to do that as well. And then you've got this powerful resource for humanity that's pretty much available for free to everybody all over the world, and transforming ourselves into kind of super beings, kind of like we see in science fiction movies and things,
That's amazing. One thing I thought was kind of a big RPG game.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So you are the character, and then you have your traits, you have your skills, everything in the dashboard, and you have all that stuff. So it's just, that's what I've been thinking for last few days. Like, this is a big RPG game. The game is the world.
Exactly, because what we found out is people move faster through material when you gamify it.
Yeah.
You did this, you get a little ding, and it's called an endorphin. You get a little shot in your system, and you feel encouraged and supported, and then the higher you go, I mean, suddenly the world looks different to you. I mean, I remember when I came back from living in Europe, I mean, that's the whole world looked different to me. I was this American kid, and suddenly 2 years in Europe and come back, you're like, whoa. I mean, I was over there, and you're reading the local newspapers and everything, and you realize, oh wait, there's different ways of seeing the world here. These are different. Each culture is like a new window, And so I have this window that I grew up with, but now I can look through this French window or this Portuguese window, and I don't lose the other ones. The window gets bigger, And so I have cultural relativity and all that. So I think gamification is the name of the game. It's really edutainment. It's education combines with entertainment, and it's probably the most exciting form of entertainment. You're actually in a drama, but you're actually having to solve problems in the drama that are giving you the skills you need to master this material.
And there's two ways that I saw it. One is you can give the story or the game, and then people learn, and then they apply it in the real world. Or you can have the AI guiding you in real time while you're doing something in reality. So you could be doing carpentering or a house, and then it's guiding you. You have to put this piece here and that piece there, that piece there. But if it's like a soft skill or more like sales or something like that, it can guide you. Oh, your tone of voice is too aggressive, or you have to build more rapport or something like that, and then it kind of builds that, and you kind of know what you have to do in real time. So it's just
yeah. Let me show you something here. Um, Can you see my screen?
not yet.
No, okay. Oh, maybe you have to give me permission. No, I got it. Here it is. That's it. Okay, hold on. Now you see my screen. It says Quicksilver.
Yes.
Okay, good. So, so here's a simple thing like a warehouse, okay? And you know, they're all over the world and everything else. Um, so, so instead of a normal world, now he's got glasses on, just like you're talking about. So training people to work in a warehouse is a long, complicated thing. But now he just puts the glasses on, talks him through it, shows him exactly where to go, just what you just said. And he, they sell. See, look, see how it's showing him on the floor there? That there's where he needs to go, you know, and there's the box right there that he needs to kick, you know, to go to. So he doesn't really need, you know, it's just training him right there, see? That connects it to the inventory system. And so now then he's done that. And meanwhile, the AI is watching the whole warehouse and all the different people doing things and making sure everything is exactly right. And then even noticing that, oh, you know, if we move things around the warehouse, it would even be more efficient. And, you know, or here's the order to pick these things up in the warehouse. This will be the fastest way through it. So we were able to cut labor costs by 35% from a very advanced warehouse, you know. So so you can kind of see that could be applied to cooking, to dancing, to any kind of thing, you know. You could really have tools that you can see yourself doing it before you do it, and, you know, that kind of thing. So,
and then that's another thing, which is it accelerates the learning curve.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
someone that needed like 5 years to learn a skill on the old world where you need the 5 years to be employed or whatever, in like 1 year you get the whole
exactly.
skill.
You might get a PhD, you know, at the age of 13 in computer science, and it's the equivalent. You won't bother with doing it that way, but you might be doing that level of work at the age of 13 instead of 25. You know, absolutely, that's clearly going to happen. You know, so anyway, that's the deal. I've got to jump on to another call. Let's have another call maybe next week, and think about some of these things, and then let's talk some more, and maybe we can come up with maybe. Kind of a little outline of things, and start to talk about how we practically kick this off. You know.
That's amazing. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, this is really, I think it's the highest and best use of the technology. You know, is kind of educational entertainment, because then it takes you right into like you know, even techniques of Tibetan Buddhism, where they look at these special paintings and meditate on a certain way, and then they have this opening in their mind, and you know, they have something called enlightenment. And so we can go all the way from basic skills like, you know, how to drive a car, to all the way to the latest, highest enlightenment skills, or how to become a genetic engineer or whatever, you know. So I think it's really a potential.
Thank you, Dan. This was magnificent. I recorded it. It was so epic. I mean, wow.